Welcome to the Subjective Professor podcast, where we reject coercion and hypocrisy. This is episode 278, and it's New Year's Eve, 2024. Well, Happy New Year. I'm going to take a break tomorrow, so I'll give you the New Year's wishes today, barring something catastrophic in the news tomorrow. But I do have plans with the family tomorrow, and so I think I won't be able to get around to doing an episode. Tonight, we have at our church, we have a praying in the New Year service. So we meet at church at 11:30, and then with the clock striking 12, we have a short devotional. So we don't go outside and party, and it is something that is a very rare thing to find these days, but it's a tradition that we do at our church, and we've been doing it ever since the church started, which is back in the 60s. So it's New Year's Day is really just another day. I mean, the difference from today to tomorrow is no different than any other day, but psychologically, it helps us to mark the passage of time to gauge how far we've come and how far we need to go. We mark, because without these kinds of occasions, without the sunrise, sunset, people just don't really comprehend the passage of time. Remember to like and subscribe if you feel like sending me some love or not. This is me doing a podcast simply because I miss teaching at the university level, engaging with people and seeing kind of this awakening that students get, realizing that they've been pretty much taught subjectively all of their lives, and now they have access to a whole world of new information. So I miss it, but I'm also trying to leave something behind for my kids and maybe even their kids one day if they stumble upon these episodes. But back in episode 145, I talked about funeral planning and time preferences. It doesn't seem that long ago, just a few months ago. But just as a review, a time preference describes basically how urgent something is or doing something for you that you need to do right now, right? So high time preferences versus low time preferences. And it's a kind of a weird expression, especially if you're not an economist. And so I always have to do this sort of, okay, so high time preference means I got to do it right now. And so you can't wait. And so you're going to spend your time and money right now. So a high time preference, right? It's urgent. Austrian economics says that low time preferences lead to civilization because you have to save time. You have to save your money for something in the future. And what that enables is people lending money to others so that they can do what they need to do, and it moves society along. So low time preference means that you can wait, right? So you're going to forego or put off or delay some sort of gratification for some time in the future, and right now you're just going to continue to work, plan, and save. So basically, to talk about time preference is to talk about how one uses one's time, what your priorities are, what are your values, what's your subjectivity, what is your perspective on life and what life is for and what you're supposed to use it, how you're supposed to use it. I began every semester in every class that I taught, regardless of the subject and the topic and the department, I began every semester by asking students what their most valuable resource was. And they would give me the standard, answers that all of their other professors would say, knowledge is your most valuable resource. And I'm like, nah, no, it's not. And they would always get kind of surprised. And when I would say that time was their most valuable resource, they kind of had to do you can see their minds kind of, getting glitchy, like time, and would explain it because your time is limited. Once your time is up, it's done. You can't get any more. And so therefore, time, because it's so limited and because it's already set in stone, like your fate has already been written. At least most people believe that when you're going to go is already set. So, you don't know when it is. You could go tomorrow, you can go tonight, but you wouldn't know that. And so therefore, how do you use your time? Some people will say, I don't want to know. That way I can, not have any worries. But that's one way of looking at it. If that's what you prefer, fine. But most people, it's like, well, if I found out that I only have a year left to live, then what am I going to do? Right. And so that's the thing. And so I told them the reason why I'm talking about it is because time is the most valuable resource. I have to make this class worth it for them, worth getting up in the morning and attending, worth doing the work, worth listening, paying attention. Otherwise, what's the point? You would just simply be wasting your time. And listening to a podcast too, it has to be worth it. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time. And so I always try to, build these episodes around something that would get people to think, right? So information is readily available everywhere, and a lot people who are much better at relaying information, who have different formats, and so can get into things really deeply. That's not my thing. I try to do superficial research, excuse me, so that I could just present some perspectives on that phenomenon, like how should it affect you? How should you then make decisions moving forward? So, just like my classes that I taught, when I would do this podcast, I try to make it so that no one feels like they're wasting their time. Or at least you can read the description and say, okay, this topic's not for me, and you just move on. But if you don't take advantage of all the opportunity that you have in life, like especially if you're unaware of all of the opportunity that life or college has to offer, then basically you're wasting your time. I had a student once, I did that shtick. I did my spiel every semester. And this one particular semester, one of the last semesters I taught, I had a cancer survivor in the class and he was in remission. He was a really young guy. I think he was 18, 19 years old. And he told me, and he came up to me after class and we talked. We talked a lot actually. And he said that his dream was always to go to college, especially when he was diagnosed with cancer. He was like, oh man, I'm never going to be able to go to college. And so when he was, you know, cancer free, when he was in remission, he was like, awesome, I can go to college now. But then after taking my class and after those discussions, I think he started to reevaluate, and the nature of the conversations we had after class was different. And he said that he started talking with his parents. He said that, and then he was absent a couple times. He didn't turn in a couple assignments. And then towards the end of the semester, he told me that, he's going to have to reevaluate a lot of things, maybe even whether it's worth it to go into debt, go to college, and then, for the cancer to come back, and so what is it that he really wants to do is, getting a college degree and then not being able to use it. I mean, is that really worth it? And that's the kind of tough choices that sometimes people are led to make. But broadly speaking, I would even tell everyone, how a few years ago, people were saying that climate change, because of climate change, we'll all be dead in 5 years. And I think I remember hearing that back in 2016 or something like that. And so for a few years, I got to say, look, uh, I know none of you believe it. And they all looked at me like, what do you mean? I think climate change is really important. I said, yeah, because I know none of you believe it, because if you knew that we only had 5 years left, I mean, the first thing you're going to do is going to blow 4 years of it going to school. Really? And it made everyone kind of think. And so some people got defensive and they were saying, oh, no, no, but it's still so important. I'm like, yeah, well, if it's so important, then why are you wasting 4 years of your life doing nothing about it and instead contributing to the carbon footprint doing nothing? right? I mean, it means that you really don't believe it, right? You say it for various reasons, but you really don't believe it. Otherwise, your choices would be different, right? You wouldn't be in school. And that's the nature of some of the conversations they would have. They would say, "Oh, but we're learning here to learn how to fight climate change." I'm like, dude, if it was really that important, you would get a crash course, learn it in a couple of weeks, and then you'd be on the front lines trying to do something about it. But no, that's not what you did because you wanted to party, you wanted to have new experiences as you're on the way to the end of the world, right? So it was kind of funny, right? I got everyone to laugh at themselves and realize that they're basically living in a lie. And that's the thing, right? Are you living a lie? Or is the information that you're using to make the choices on how to use your time, is it really true or not? And all information, I believe, is at least on one level subjective. So how subjective is it? How narrow is it? How much of the rest of the world are you ignoring as you make your choices? One of the more, and I've talked about this before, but one of the popular fads and trends that a lot of my students had, particularly during the lockdowns, was the live in the moment idea, right? And I thought about this a lot, live in the moment. Well, that's kind of interesting, right? So you're trying to enjoy right now. Like, don't worry so much about all this other stuff. I mean, enjoy the people you are with now, enjoy the experience that you have right now. But, that's every day, right? I mean, why do you have to sort of make it this mantra? And I think it's because a lot of people lost hope, right? There is no hope for a better future, so may as well enjoy the moment. I can't buy a house. The economy sucks. World War III, politicians suck. The deep state sucks. All of this stuff. What hope is there? And so just live in the moment. There's no point in planning. Don't stress about the problems that you have right now and the consequences of inaction and dealing with those problems, that's going to come, that is on its way, credit card bills that you're ignoring, hospital bills that you're ignoring, contacting your parents, asking for forgiveness, whatever, all that stuff. Forget about it, right? Things will take care of themselves, So when the rubber meets the road, then you have to confront it, and it all works out eventually. So why plan? Why bother stressing about it? Don't waste your time thinking about it, right? Don't waste your time with regret for the bad choices you've made in the past. And so this is sort of like a blank check for people to continue to lead a somewhat hedonistic lifestyle, right? And I think that a lot of college students were able to have that because their parents are the ones that are either paying the tuition or they're co-sign the loans that they have, so they don't have a financial burden. They get to live and enjoy this sort of pseudo adult life while they're in college. And so, yeah, live in the moment. But it reminded me of bad faith practices that you see people in church, right? People who claim to believe in Jesus, they say, well, Jesus will take care of it, so I'll just be irresponsible today because God's going to take care of me. It reminded me of that, right? So, yeah, everything will work out, so I don't need to worry about it. I have a theory that people who have high time preferences, which is basically what live in the moment is, it's a high time preference lifestyle, right? So I'm not going to worry about tomorrow. I'm not going to worry about the future. I'm not going to save for the future. I'm just going to do everything now. And I think it's because people who have high time preferences also are really anxious people, right? Which is why they're going to embrace the live in the moment. That's the way they're going to get over their anxiety. I think people who do that, this is my theory, right? Is because they lack information, right? They don't understand the world enough, and they don't know how to. And so therefore they're just going to like, why bother? I'm just going to live in the moment. The information that I'm going to find out is going to be ugly. It's going to make me depressed. It's going to force me to have to do work. So nah, I'm not going to even bother to do that. I will make a little footnote here that this live in the moment idea was also iterated by an actor, Andy Whitfield, who played Spartacus in the HBO series. And then he was diagnosed with cancer and then he died. But he made a video uh, record of his last days, right? Of how he was going to try to beat cancer. And I'm sure they were hoping for a happy ending, but ended up that he passed away. And I'm sure that they considered that if he did pass away, then this would be something he could leave behind for his kids, for his family. And so I thought that that's when live in the moment makes sense. When you know that you have an expiration date, you know that the expiration date is coming soon. So then, yeah, sure, live in the moment. But you've already decided, right? You've already established how you're going to live your life. And so it's a great every day you get to reevaluate, is this really what I want? Is this really what I want to leave behind? So we're about to start a new year. This is New Year's Eve. Tomorrow is the first day of a new year. And sort of cautionary tale, I guess, that it's easy to live our entire lives in such a way that when we wake up, we suddenly realize that most of our life is behind us, not in front of us, right? So I'm looking at 60 years of life next year. And where did all the time go? I mean, I still remember my 20s like it was yesterday. So time just moves by so quickly. My father was obsessed with saving time. Why wait till tomorrow to do something you can do today? He was all about saving time, saving money, and he would tell me things like, it's not how much you make, it's how much you save. No $1 million without $1. Time is money. No, time is life. And so he would, sort of regularly tell me how much time he saved that week and how much time he was projected to save that year. And it would come add up to days and weeks. And so he was like, see, this is how I was able to do so much more in life. And yeah, I mean, he wrote so much. You'll never read it because it was all in Korean, but 40 volumes, right? 40 books he wrote, and they were huge books. They were tomes. And I don't know if I'll ever get around to reading it, but they were sermon collections, they were philosophy books, they were theological books, doctrinal books, there are all this stuff, right? And then, maybe one day I will get around to read it, but it was all in Korean, right? So maybe I'll have to translate everything. Maybe that will be what I'll be doing for the end part of my life to keep my mind occupied and busy so I don't become senile and fall into dementia or whatever. But anyway, the point is, don't do bucket lists. I mean, you can conceptually have one, to aspire to do certain things, but why wait to do something which is meaningful when you can do it today? Now, I'm not talking about studying or anything like this, but I'm talking about spending time with the people that you love most now, right? So there was that movie Bucket List with Jack Nicholson and Morgan Freeman. And I'll try not to give away the ending, but basically they were like, "Yeah, let's do our bucket list." And then one of them says, "Psh, this is cool and fun and awesome, but it doesn't have meaning for me." And I guess that's kind of what I mean by a bucket list. For myself, I used to want to travel the world, but then I realized that it's not necessarily the activity or what I want to do, but rather who I want to do it with. And if I'm always with the people that I love the most and, I want to be with the most, then I don't have to go anywhere. I don't know if my wife agrees with that, but at least that's my opinion. And so I really don't have that wanderlust desire of traveling the world any longer. I'm quite happy with being with my family, spending time with my kids. So what's my exhortation for you for the new year? Get informed, deconstruct all the information that you think is true, reevaluate, find meaning in life on your own terms, right? According to whatever value system that you have. For myself, it's about Jesus, right? I'm Christian, fanatical Christian, and so I try to find meaning and faith in, following the words of scripture and finding that meaning with the people that I love. Use if you're anxious, if you're full of anxiety, use it as motivation to learn more, to study more, to broaden your subjectivity, right? In order to make better choices. And you will see magically that anxiety slowly disappear. I know because that's what I did. Be as productive as you can, right? That's why I have, two jobs, three jobs, and, I think I said once upon a time that when I found out I had a debt to pay off, I was a full-time student, but I took on five part-time jobs in addition to that just to pay it all off. So be as productive as you can, right? It's going to be a bumpy ride moving forward, Trump election, but all the weird things that he's saying and all the geopolitical things that are happening, the financial things that are happening, it's going to be a bumpy ride. And so you being in a better position mentally, financially, psychologically, you're going to be able to be better. You're going to better handle all of the diversity and adversity that's coming. So happy New Year. Have a safe and enjoyable time of festivities, and I'll catch you in the new year.